Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jamie Hall. I am the president for the Jamestown Business Association, known as the JBA. We are honored to sponsor this forum tonight with the candidates for the Jamestown Council. The JBA strives to unite the businesses of this community that we all know and love. The JBA is the coordinating sponsor for the Christmas on Main event that is in downtown Jamestown. It runs, this year we will run the entire length of Main Street. This event is held within the Merchants of Jamestown and some historic properties that we also have. This year it is the 6th, the 8th, and the 20th. These are every Wednesday of December before Christmas. It is from 5 to 8 o'clock, and we have a lot of wonderful things that will happen this year. We're hoping this year is even more wow than the years previous. I would now like to introduce our candidates. We will go alphabetically. This is Pamela Burgess, John Capes, Sarah Granville.
Glanville.
Granville, correct?
With an L, yeah.
Yes, sorry. I'm so sorry. I spelled it in my notes.
We have Granville County, so it gets very confusing, I realize.
and Andrew Kinsey. Today, we will go through some guidelines. Now, we will go in alphabetical order for each candidate. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to have an opening statement. You will also have 3 minutes for each question that you are asked. These questions will be randomly drawn out of this bowl. That particular question will only be asked to one candidate. We are going to ask approximately 6 questions per candidate, depending on timing. You will also have 3 to 5 minutes at the end to address anything that you might have a different statement of, or just a closing statement. Again, the questions are randomly picked. If someone from the public did submit a question and it was not asked, it's still in the bowl. So we thought this was the best way for it to be fair. We did get several entries, so we were very excited about how much participation we did get. Again, we would like to thank everybody for coming. Wes Cashwell is our moderator. He will be asking the questions. He will also be paying attention to the time. You do, like I said, have 3-ish minutes, so if you're tending to get a little bit long, we will give you a signal. So now I would like to let Pamela, we will start again alphabetically, we will let Pamela introduce herself.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Jamie and JBA, for having me this evening. My name is Pamela Burgess, but everyone knows me as Pam. I am originally from New Jersey. I am married to a wonderful husband, Carl, and I have 1 adult son and an old but very active dog. I have been living here in Jamestown for 25 years. Was relocated here with my husband's company, and we settled in beautiful Jamestown, and it wasn't a mistake. With that being said, also I would like to say that my mom is actually number 2 of 16 children, and so I do come from a very large extended family. So therefore I'm very family orientated as well. Being here in Jamestown, I just developed a passion, a love for Jamestown, the quaint town, but of course the people. The people it's just like when I say I have a large family, well, this 37 some people here feel like my family. And during this campaign, I have gotten a chance to meet so many more, and hopefully they'll be my new friends as well. But with that being said, I love Jamestown. Approximately 3.5 years ago, I decided to volunteer, and I had the opportunity to work extensively with the planning the strategic plan, which was a 1.5 years of very long, hard work. So that started out with my volunteering. From there, of course, loved Envision Jamestown, just getting to know the town more, walking through, meeting more people, of course. And then also with that, I am currently active on the AARP Livable Community, as well as being an alternate on the planning board. So with that, I have a lot of experience in volunteering with the town, but most importantly, I have had the opportunity to develop great relationships with the local government and as well as the staff. So that has been amazing. I feel very equipped at this time for a council position, simply because of my passion, the history, the love, the people, the local government. What more could you ask for? So that's my story. I love Jamestown, and I hope that I have the opportunity to continue to volunteer and give more back to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. John?
Well, hello everybody. My name is John Capes. I have lived in Jamestown for the past 20 years. Married, raised 3 children here. I have 2 cats, Evil Cat and Joey Bag of Donuts, both very good animals. I love this town. When we moved here in '03, it was really a question of, are we in our final place? And we always joked about our final home, and it always had this heavy sound to it in terms of doom, it's the final place. But no, it was actually a matter of, is this really where we're going to actually drop roots and call home? Because we'd moved around a good bit. I'd been in retail for about a dozen years, and so we saw a good bit of this state and a couple of others. So the question became, where's home? Now, some people tell you home is where you hang your hat, and that's great. Personally, I felt it from the time I first opened up the door to the house that we live in now, and it has always been something that mattered a lot to me. After we'd lived here for, 5 or 6 years, I started attending meetings on a regular basis, and usually I was behind the lectern just talking and asking questions and whatnot. And then around 2012, I was able to join the planning board. I was essentially the backup, the alternate, and then I was a member of the planning board. And then subsequently in 2017, the opportunity to run for council came up, and I decided I would run with my daughter's permission because she was going to Ragsdale at the time. And I didn't plan on springing that on her. I was going to, I wanted to volunteer in some capacity. So that's really all that came down to. So basically, I'm very happy to be here. I want to thank Wes and Jamie for putting this together. I want to congratulate 3 other people for running, because it's great to see new faces in this process. And I don't know if that's 3 minutes or not, but I'll stop there.
Thank you, John. Sarah?
Yeah, thank you very much for having us tonight. I appreciate all of you coming out and asking questions, and I'm eager to see how this unfolds. I'm Sarah Glanville, and Jamie, please don't worry. Many people get my last name incorrect. I hear Granville and Glandville with a D in it, and my favorite that I ever had was Glamzeal. I thought that was really, had a lot of pizzazz to it. So, but I'm Sarah Glanville. I, like our other 2 speakers, I'm not from here originally. I'm from Maine originally. And after living and growing up in Maine, I moved to California for a bit and then to Boston for graduate school. So when I was living in Boston, I met my husband, and we just really, Boston was not for us, and we wanted to move. We had 4 requirements. It had to be cheaper, warmer, less traffic, and people are nicer. So his company has an office here in the Greensboro area, so he requested a transfer, and we came down here and started looking. And when we were looking around, we really loved Jamestown. He's from Erie, Pennsylvania, so neither of us are from really big areas. Where I grew up, Bangor, at 32,000 people is the city. But, I had lived in San Francisco and Boston and had some experience in cities, so Jamestown was perfectly positioned because it had the small town character, the charm, the close-knit community that I was used to and my husband was used to when we were growing up, but we were in such close proximity to more urban areas and all the amenities that come with that. So we chose Jamestown. We moved into our neighborhood in 2008. We immediately learned it was the perfect neighborhood for us, and it showed everything we loved about Jamestown. 4 of our immediate neighbors are descendants of the original owners of the home. We are only the second owner of our home. It really shows that people come to Jamestown, whether they're born here or whether they choose to be here, and they stay here. And there's a reason they stay here, and it's as others have alluded to, it's the community, it's the people, it's the love of the small town. And as I run for town council, that's some of the things I'm most interested in. It's keeping our small town, making sure that as we develop, we do it responsibly, we do it with respect for the people who already live here. And I've been, as we all know, Johnson Farm is, on the horizon, and I've been a pretty active part of that. I've volunteered on the planning board since 2011. When I moved here in 2008, I'm sure Matthew could tell you probably within 2 weeks of me moving here, I was in his office with all my opinions. I have lots of ideas and lots of thoughts on things. And so I eventually in 2011 joined the planning board as a full-time member. Then I became the vice chair, and now I'm currently the chair of the planning board. I've also done quite a bit of volunteer work at the Ragsdale YMCA. I've coached my kids' soccer teams and basketball teams, and I've been a member of the PTA. My kids now go to JMS. They're both in middle school over there. So we are really tied to this community. My kids were both born here. They will be raised here, so we're quite convinced neither of them will ever leave our house, so they probably will also die here. So I'm happy to be here, and I look forward to this.
Thank you, Sarah. Andrew?
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Kinsey. First time running for any type of office. Been a firefighter for 17 years, currently ranked captain. Basically, Josh Fields convinced me to run for town council after listening to complaints and him listening to me talk every now and then, talking with many small businesses. I grew up in the Jamestown area, was actually born and raised in Colony Park before moving to Northern High Point. Played sports in the Jamestown Youth League growing up, basically till I was about 13, 14, played for the Jamestown Jammers soccer team here. And so numerous memories within this community as I grew up and having that close-knit community. Basically, the reasoning for running, I see a lot of issues within the community as a whole. Vacant buildings, including the old laundromat or right downtown. I'd like to see that fixed up. The businesses have sort of been ignored by the community. If you go to a lot of them, the restaurants excel really well, but the boutiques seem to be struggling. Even with the closure or the opening of the bypass, traffic has not really decreased through the downtown area as far as for the businesses themselves. The restaurants are still excelling really well, but if you talk to some of the business owners, they have to survive on their own, especially like Southern Junk, Flares. Some of these businesses have tried to have a say in the town and have been ignored, especially when it comes to signage for Southern Junk. They're being denied signage even though they have an agreement with the property owner of that corner lot. So I'd like to see some of that change to help benefit these local businesses, bring in more foot traffic, bring in festivals, a spring and fall festival, to give the community something to help these businesses excel and support those small businesses. As a community, I'd like to see us build each other up. I feel like the council members have sort of ignored some of the complaints from the citizens without being transparent in a lot of things. Like today's meeting, or today's forum. If you look on the town's website or our town's Facebook page, there is nothing within the past week to support or mention of this town forum. So where's the transparency? I'd like to see a little bit more transparency and openness from our town to provide a little bit of input and provide a little bit of insight for the citizens themselves and give them a voice back. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, are we ready for the first question? Thank you, Wes.
Well, good evening. My name is Wes Cashwell, and I'd like to also extend my welcome to tonight's forum featuring the 2023 candidates for the Town of Jamestown Town Council. I think we all need to give a very special thanks to the Jamestown Business Association and the Town of Jamestown staff for their interest and support of this forum. And also thank you to you, our in-person audience, and to those watching online for your interest in these candidates. And we hope that we'll all come away enlightened and better informed as we go into the election season. Our first question this evening is for Pam Burgess. What is your approach to handling a controversial or complicated matter?
As a council person, I realize that we are a body. And so it is important that we work as a team, that we communicate, collaborate, and discuss different things together as a team. I feel that that way we are able to come together with respect and opinions, and if it's complicated, then I feel that if working together with my colleagues, my teammates, my other council members, we can come together and come up with the right decision or thoughts or ideas to move the complication forward in a manner that would be respectful and helpful to all.
Thank you. For John Capes, a business owner approaches you with a request to provide funding to allow them to update their building's appearance. How would you approach this situation?
I think first and foremost, it's important to try to seek to better understand what the situation is in terms of what brought them to talk to somebody that is on council. Have they talked to other people? Have they been given other information? Try to seek to better understand what it is that they're trying to accomplish for the funds that they're asking for. Now, the way the town is structured, I think it's important to, also educate on the process itself as far as that, the businesses we will support, we'll do whatever we can, but as a body, we try to collectively point them in directions where they can find better resources, better help. The JBA would be a great example. Shameless plug for you there. I just want to throw that in there.
Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. I feel very strongly about the businesses in Jamestown, and I know there's been at least a few opinions about helping the town out and being able to make the town more vibrant in terms of the success of those businesses. I think if you want to be honest with the people that are coming to you, if a business comes to you and says, I want X amount of dollars, there needs to be some education involved first, because the process isn't that cut and dry. I mean, it would be nice if it was. But realistically, there are a series of steps, and realistically, the town itself is not in a position to fund individual businesses, because the thing is, we treat things on an even table of everybody's got to get the same opportunities, the same respect, the same answers. We cannot arbitrarily give funds to one business without giving it to them all. And realistically, we're not set up to do that. But, that being said, I think it's important as a leader, and I think it's incumbent upon a leader, to both assess out what the situation is that they have, what they're trying to accomplish, and try to help them to find resources, because there are a lot of funds, grants, things of that nature that help small businesses. And I believe very strongly that that's something that will help make a difference if they are in that situation. So there is no direct A to B answer for that, but that would be how I would approach it.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
For Sarah. On occasion, people make the claim that the town is, quote, "not transparent." How do you feel about this issue, and how do you propose to enhance transparency?
That is a good question. I personally have never found a lack of transparency with the town. I'm speaking from my personal experience. The town staff have always welcomed me with open arms anytime I've had a question. They say, "Come on in, and we'd love to talk to you about this if I have a concern." They've been more than willing to share. The town council meetings are all open. They're now all on YouTube. You can hear it all on there. I personally have not seen a lack of transparency. I do understand that there are ideas that maybe there are some goings-on behind the scenes. I know for a fact there's going-ons behind the scenes because you have to. You can't come to a meeting or a town council meeting, a planning board meeting, a Parks and Rec meeting. You have to be prepared and you have to know what's going on. And sometimes that takes some prep work. That means you have to speak to town staff, you have to speak to one another, maybe you have to speak to whoever. I can speak to the planning board. If there's a property owner, we don't necessarily speak to them directly, but we may get information prior to in our packet, about what their concern is and what's going on. And we may reach out to experts in the field to get a better understanding before we go in to make that decision. I don't think that necessarily is a lack of transparency. I think that's preparation. And I think that from what I've seen, everyone involved with the town has that respect and does that preparation. If people do have concerns, I'm open to ideas to increase transparency. I think that, social media might be a great way to do that. I also think, though, that we have limited resources. And to respond to every single request that comes through, which may not be, of the town's utmost concern. Not that it's not of a concern, and I can speak to that I've had my own concerns that are important to me, but not necessarily priority for the town. But there needs to be understanding that there's limited resources, and if you get an influx of requests for information, and that there's only so much that can be done. And so yeah, I think, however you can be transparent, whether that be, I think there's also, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's an impetus on the other side to come in, get the information, show up to the town council meetings, show up to the planning board meetings, get your information from reliable resources. And then for the town, they post all the minutes online. I will say, I do think there's some things that could be done better. We have not had a planning board meeting in quite a while, which means we haven't approved the minutes from the last meeting, so those are not online yet. So I think there are some steps like that we can take to help encourage the town to maybe go to the next step. But overall, I personally have not seen a lack of transparency.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is for Andrew Kinsey. As a council member, you may often be on the receiving end of criticism. Tell us how you would handle that criticism from members of the public.
Well, I'd respect their opinion. If I don't know the answer to the question or their statement, I'll try and seek an answer for them. I'll try and gain a better understanding of why they feel the way they feel about certain issues, certain topics, say water supply, water service, or water quality. I know that's been a hot topic here as far as the testing goes and testing concerns. I know that's been brought up in numerous council meetings as far as the quality and the testing and being transparent about those testings. It's hard to find past testing on our website. The last 2 years is sort of empty when you look at that statistic on there. And then our testing or our quality reports don't really go into great detail or depth as far as that's concerned. So being more transparent about our answers, providing the facts, researching those facts, and providing those answers to the citizen or whoever's coming at me, I would like to be able to better have that understanding and help them to gain an understanding as to why our decision was the way it was. And that's the big issue there, is providing that information to the public instead of just criticizing a complaint, say the water quality issue. Instead of shutting them down, provide the answer and provide the information as to why we made that decision.
Thank you. Pam Burgess, do you think our Main Street downtown area is healthy and successful? If not, what would you do to change it?
I actually do think that it is healthy and successful. I tell you, I am one of the probably biggest marketer around, walking around downtown, down there pretty much every weekend. I've gotten a chance to spend a lot of time, quality time with most of the businesses. I think I do think it's healthy in that, and I do think it's safe. I think that we can do a little bit more, maybe perhaps with the parking or things of that nature. I have heard different things where people may have want more for downtown. But I think that if we do, we can think about the other businesses going further down Main Street. But overall, I have felt very, very safe downtown. I enjoy the businesses, the local restaurants, big supporter. I have not had anything personal happen that would cause me any concern. However, there is always room for more or to do better. I don't have any qualms about it expanding if we can, if it's desired by, our constituents, if it's feasible with the town. As of right now, I do think that it is a great place. Lots of people come from near and far to visit downtown. That speaks volumes, about safety and having a downtown that is conducive.
Thank you. Thank you, Pam. John Capes, where are your favorite places to spend time in Jamestown, and why?
There are so many. Where to start? Frankly, the one thing I like, let me back up for 1 second, I'll go into it. But I remember back in around 2007, 2008, we had Sadie Mae's, great little restaurant, really good lasagna. And then it went away. And you could see the tumbleweeds blowing down Main Street because there was nothing going on, literally. And after that, we had the Deck, and we had Potent Potables. We'd always had the soap lady here. We'd always had, a certain sense of, we needed more in the way of business. So over time, we've seen Black Powder Restaurant, which I've eaten at plenty of times, and quite frankly, need to lose weight because of. If you go down the road to Full Moon Oyster Bar is just a fantastic place to go. You're doing good if you can get in sometimes. I personally like Potent Potables because I can sit out front, I can count how many cars go up and down the road, I can sit with my friends and have a good time and just talk and enjoy the day, especially on a day like this when it's finally starting to cool off and I don't have to swim through the humidity. There are a variety of places. If you go further down the road, I mentioned Southern Junk previously, and a question was asked outside of here. And I think that they do a fantastic job of driving their own business by setting up these events out in the field in front of their store. It's a fantastic store. I've shopped there before myself, and I've been to their outdoor festivals. It's really a great job and very innovative as far as what they do. I even get my medication at CVS, so just down the street. So, you know, when I look at, I'm sorry, Walgreens, I was close.
Yeah.
Slipped up. But, you know, if you look at what we have and you look at where we've been, I mean, I go to Bee's Blue House Bakery on a regular basis because the quiche there is fantastic. And if they're about this big, so I get 2 of them, again, another reason to lose some weight. I'm working on it. But the number of shops that are in town, quite frankly, are worth frequenting, and I find that the people that are most engaged with the town know all those businesses, know the owners of those businesses, have spoken to those businesses, and quite frankly, understand Jamestown for what it is. And it is a large part of the town because it is, quite frankly, the main artery that cuts through town. So there was a lot of discussion about whether or not the businesses are successful and how things are doing and if there's some kind of problem. The only thing I've seen is growth. I've been on the council for almost 6 years, and the only thing I've seen is growth consistently. I have had people come to me personally at events when we've had music in the park, which if we could count that as a shop, Lord, 5 months out of the year, it's a great place to be, and I do frequent that. I've had people approach me and ask, what do we need to do to have a business here? What needs to be done in terms of property that's available? And you have to go through the people that own the property. You can't just arbitrarily tell them, hey, fix that, because we're the government. You have to actually go to the owner and say, we would appreciate your help with this. And there's a process because they're private property owners. So if you went to somebody like the dry cleaners and you said something like, you've got to fix this up, well, the problem with that is it is owned by somebody. And we are a representative government that is not set up to tell people what to do with their property individually. You know, if it looks bad, we'll go through a process with them. So again, and that used to be a cleaner world, but anyway, and I used to get my clothes cleaned there. So that's really all I've got. So I could talk about this for another 20 minutes if you like, but I don't think anybody wants to hear it. So,
Thank you, John.
sure.
The next question is for Sarah Glanville. The recent D.R. Horton, AKA Johnson Property Development, has created some division in our community. How would you propose to unify the community once again?
That is a good question. I'm sorry, I'm going to break the rules for a second, though. I'm going to return to my previous question, not to gain more time, but I just wanted to make a clarifying point. And that is, when I was speaking about kind of these behind-the-scenes conversations, I do want to make very clear, because I can speak from this personally. For instance, on the planning board, we are a group of volunteers. We don't necessarily know all the rules and regulations of planning boards. We, have training by the School of Government and such. The town staff have always been very clear with us. Do not send emails as a group to each other. That's considered a violation of open meeting laws. So again, they are working towards that transparency, and they are instilling it in the volunteers for the community who don't necessarily always know the rules and violate them. So I just wanted to make that clarifying point to make sure no one thought there's all these secret emails going around or something. Yes, the D.R. Horton property, it is very divisive, I think. Mostly because it's a huge change for Jamestown. Like, I haven't heard one person yet be like, yes, we can't wait for that to come. So I actually think there is some unity on it. Maybe not necessarily in all aspects on it. Some people say we don't want it at all. Some have, said we want it, but in a certain way. But I think there is unity in that. No one is like, rah, rah, we can't wait for this to happen. But I think we know it's going to happen. And I think the town did an excellent job when they hired the consultant to come in and get input from the community. That was an extensive process. I've never seen anything like that. And not that my experience is vast in this area, but to have a consultant come in and run all these sessions with citizen engagement to say, what do you want to see in a community? What would it look like? And then to go through and say, we're not going to do this without a development agreement. You're not just going to come into Jamestown, change the face of our town significantly, and do it the way you want to do it. Absolutely. We're going to have input into it, and we're going to come to an agreement on how it's done. And there's give and take in that process, and some things, we gave, and some things we took. And so I think always there are going to be folks who, if I don't get the whole thing my way, I don't want it at all. And that's going to, just going to be how some people think about it. And I think, though, if we start to frame it as, we know it's happening, we've gone through an extensive process to try to make it the absolute best that it can be with the input from the citizens of Jamestown who live here currently, and we have now this opportunity to welcome people to our community. How can we now best welcome these people who are going to be half of our town, honestly? It's going to double the size of our town. So what can we do together to put our best foot forward and welcome them into our town so they feel as committed to the town as the people who live here now do?
Thank you. Andrew Kinsey, how would you increase efficiencies within the town government?
Basically, I do a program analysis throughout the town, each division within the town, public service, public works, water service, and see about whether the employee, or check the accountability process, see what the steps are, see what the measurements are to ensure that our employees are actually working fully, that they have an equal workload. I would check our contractors too, see what contracts we are offering, see why we're offering those contracts. If it's something that the town can do itself or that there's currently employees for, say lawn care, for example, is one of them. The town contracts to have the park and town hall and the fire station maintained, but yet we have lawn service crews available to maintain those lots. Half the time they're riding around town on their trucks with very little accountability. And you can ask some of the business owners within the town, you can ask some of the actual employees themselves within the town, and they'll say the same thing. There's a lot of people that are working, or there's some that are working, and then there's a lot that are stagnant. So doing a proper evaluation of every single division, every single basically service, seeing where we can cut costs, and seeing how we can hold our employees accountable to proper measurements while ensuring they're actually adequately paid and compensated for the work that they're doing. I feel like some of the salaries currently within the town could actually be reevaluated. Even though there was a pay study just done, it's still far behind a lot of other communities throughout the state, Wake County area, whereas our property values, property rates, taxes, everything else have increased. Their salaries have not reflected that increase in overall budget for them.
Thank you. The next question is for Pam Burgess. How do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making processes in Jamestown?
Communicate, communicate, communicate. That is one of my stronger points that I feel is extremely important. Also with communicate, get them involved. We've got to get people out and involved. We will hear people kind of whine, complain, but what's that going to do if we're not getting involved? We've got to get people involved. We've got to talk to people. We've got to come together. We've got to come together as a community. We've got to educate each other on the local government. Spend some time with each other. During this campaign, I've had the opportunity to just talk to so many people. And when you talk to people one-on-one, and you really, you get the opportunity to find out exactly how they're feeling. How are they feeling about their town? What is it that they want different in their town? Do they want anything different in their town? So what's really important is communicating. Let everyone know that, it's okay. It's okay to talk. It's okay to share your ideas. It's okay to share your opinions. And let's not be afraid to do that with one another. Let's do it in a respectful manner. That's really important. I feel that if we all come together and just, collaborate, communicate, one of the things that's really important, especially that, during this whole candidacy, is really important to me is is bringing people together. I have seen a little bit of the division as well, but I think that if we show respect, humility, humanity, communicate, get involved, educate, I think we'll be on to something.
Thank you, Pam. John Capes.
Yes, sir.
The town has several projects which were left unfunded this year, which residents have stated are a, quote, high priority. How would you propose those projects be completed with the limited funds available?
It's a tough one. Every year, the council starts in January trying to assess what the budget's going to be for the coming year, which begins 6 months later. It takes that long for us to kind of work through the whole budgetary process. One of the things that is included in that is a list of the things that we must do and the things that we should do, and then a list of what would be nice if we could do. I think you have to be objective and look at intelligent spending in terms of what are the facets of this town that need the most help. As an example, we had some bathrooms that were in dire need of repair. Quite frankly, they were in dire need of replacement, and they date back to the last time they were touched. I was roughly 5 years old, so it was overdue. It was overdue. And so we try to prioritize the facets of the town based on where we're at and what we can afford to do. It isn't something that we can just arbitrarily say, well, we'll take care of everything. And there's going to be differences of opinion, of course, as far as what can be done. But I think it's important also to try to get feedback from the people in the town, find out what they're seeing, what they think, what the reasons why are. I think that it's important to assess that. I can't arbitrarily say we should do this, this, and this, because it'll change in the span of a month, 6 months. Our economy has not been great, and as such, the prices have gone up. As such, we've had numerous challenges to try to figure out what we can do, what we can afford to do, and what okay, this now costs 30% more than it cost two years ago when we started the project. We still have to front the money. So what does that take away from? How do we compromise? How do we figure out this against that as far as what's going to make us take care of the 20% that'll help us grab the other 80% over time? Because it is always a balancing act. It is not something that we can just arbitrarily wave a wand and just spend all the money. We're trying to maintain certain funds because by law we have to. They can't go dry, they can't be in a deficit, they cannot just continue that way, because if they do, then ultimately the state can step in and we have a problem because we lose a lot of our fundamental freedoms as a town that's incorporated. And I think that matters. So the answer is simply this. Take an analytical approach at what are the priorities today. What are the facets that need the most attention today? Is it sidewalks? Is it a dam? Is it a bathroom? Is it adding to the facets of Jamestown to help improve upon who and what we are? And then make the best decision you can at that time. Hopefully, it'll be a good one. And without fail, that's my 3 minutes. But y'all wondering what I was doing with my phone up here. All right, that's all I've got.
Thank you, John.
That's making me think all my answers are well over.
You know, try to keep me honest.
For Sarah Glanville, if someone came to you with a proposal to build a new piece of public infrastructure, for example, sidewalks to their neighborhood, how would you evaluate whether that project was worth implementing?
Well, I think John kind of just talked about it a bit. It's a process. And so I can't personally say, okay, yes, we're going to do that sidewalk project. Now, people who know me too, I am huge on sidewalks, and I believe that every child should be able to walk to school from their home and be able to safely do that. So I would love to say yes to say it was a sidewalk. But, you know, there is a process where projects get vetted through their urgency, the feasibility, the budget, where can we get grants for them, do they need to be shovel-ready for the grants, these kinds of things. So, the process, I believe, from what I've seen, has worked. So I would, being on the town council, I would have a little more knowledge about that process and hopefully be able to educate them, but also advocate for them to say, let's talk to some other neighbors, see, is this really a priority for this neighborhood as a whole? And do we need to, get together to think about, gosh, we hadn't even thought of that before, like it had never occurred to the folks making the decision that this is a priority project because they don't live in that neighborhood, or, it was outside of their line of thinking. So, work with them and say, let's see what can be done. Let's see where we can fit this in and make it work if it is a larger community need. I'm going to be brief on that one. I think that was somewhat brief.
You're good. Thank you. The next question is for Andrew Kinsey. A resident asks you a question that you don't have an answer for. Where do you find the correct information, and how would you respond to that citizen inquiry?
Depending on what the topic is, I'll try and find the person in charge of that area, try and gain the correct answer from them. I'll also research the question at hand. I'll try and find factual information that backs up either what they're saying or my belief in the matter, and go from there to address the issue, try and come up, as Pamela's been saying, the compromise and a little bit of unity involved, being cordial and respectful to their opinion, even if it's a differing opinion than yours, trying to find that common ground to either change my opinion of the topic or help them understand what all my beliefs are and why I believe that, and also have them research the topic a little bit as well, provide the information to them that way they can better understand and better formulate their idea and their opinion, and see if we can't come to a mutual understanding.
Thank you. For Pam Burgess, describe any civic, volunteer, or nonprofit organizations you've been a member of which benefit the town of Jamestown.
Every single one that I've done. I think every single volunteer opportunity I've had in Jamestown is a benefit. You learn different things. There's different deliveries on each. But I will say I was a campaign chair for YMCA Camp Weaver, even though that's Greensboro. Jamestown benefited because I did try to get children from Jamestown, and there were quite a few children that went to that camp, so that was definitely beneficial as a nonprofit. And so, yeah, I think that every single civic is just beneficial. I mean, volunteering is extremely important. That's the best way, I think, that you'll be able to understand the local government. That is just to volunteer. It's to come out, get involved. And even if it's not just the civic part, I mean, there's plenty of other things to do in Jamestown and anywhere. Very, very important. I've had the opportunity to volunteer in different capacities and learned so much from this town in the last couple of years that was so beneficial to me, but I can also talk to others. I could talk to my neighbors about it. I can talk to, and I have answered questions about volunteering in civic situations and capacities in our town, and outside actually, but in Greensboro, but bringing that in, incorporating it together.
Pam. John Capes, some business owners have expressed interest in formulating a, quote, social district, which would allow patrons to consume alcohol in open containers along Main Street. How do you feel about this idea, and do you have concerns or ways to implement it?
Well, as somebody who loves the downtown environment, I certainly can appreciate the desire to make it as free-flowing as possible. If you go to Music in the Park, for example, on a regular basis, we have a contained area where people are allowed to drink and to enjoy the music and hopefully walk home or call Uber. I can't speak today. But I think at the end of the day, you have to look at things objectively and you have to balance out, does it really make sense? Okay? As we continue to see traffic drop down on Main Street because of the bypass, it took 20 years to get the bypass. It's not going to be fixed in 8 months, okay? So it just opened. It's going to take some time for traffic patterns to change. God willing, the speed limit might even go down a little bit. And some other things might happen as well. But the bottom line is, if you are going to be realistic about having this environment, you've also got to protect the people that live in it and the people that come to visit, okay? You cannot just arbitrarily open it up and say, have at it. And that's basically part of what that would mean, because I can go from here to here without any problems. I can go from here to here without any problems. Less than a week ago, we had somebody at a local establishment try to turn another building into a drive-through because they didn't have it in gear right, and they drove into the building, okay? So do I want that person having free range to walk all over town with a beer in their hand? Not really. I'm not feeling good about it. I think at the end of the day, we have to look at reason, record, and circumstance in terms of what it is we're trying to accomplish. We are not a huge town by any measure, and I don't think anybody's been that horribly inconvenienced by having to finish a beer here and then go buy a beer here. It's just not that long a walk. I would love to say something to the contrary, but it's not. And we all need the exercise. God knows I do. I've mentioned it before. It's not been good, folks. It's not been good. So, I think at the end of the day, you got to be objective about this. I don't think it makes sense to do here. I'm sure somebody does. I'm sure somebody will put a word salad out on social media about why I'm mistaken about it. I look forward to reading it. Not really, but in any case, I just feel very strongly that we have to use good sense and protect the people in the town. We have to protect the people that come to visit the town. And we have to make sure we're taking care of the merchants in the town, because they could be liable if somebody got hurt because they went over here, just showed up here and fell over. Now they've got something hitting their insurance, and my time is just about up. So
These 3 minutes are really fast.
it's about that. Yeah.
I got 36 seconds.
Pacing myself.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Sarah Glanville. Inflationary pressures, disruption to supply chains, and increasing costs have made it difficult to forecast budgets. What tools would you use in the annual budget preparation to help the town with these issues?
Ooh, I got the hard-hitting question. First, I want to say, Pam, my kids are 9 years and running at Camp Weaver, so I very much appreciate your work on that. So they love it.
Good job.
So I work personally for quasi-governmental agencies, so we know these things very well. Our budgets are very much tied to the state budget, and are very frequently in flux, and, we don't know what's happening until it's passed, and, there's freezes on spending, this kind of thing. So I do understand the pressures that come with that, and I will say I'm not an expert. I just am not in the tools that are available. But I think that just common sense is you cannot spend if you don't have it coming in. So I know recently there's been some increases in taxes and some fees on vehicles and such that were proposed. I am in favor of those. I think that they will help. I do personally also understand, though, that there are people, because of the the same reasons that it's a burden on the town, it's a burden on families too. And people, you know, it's concerning for them when fees and taxes and such go up. It hits their pocketbook, so I understand that. Again, not being an expert in this area, you know, I would love to see if possible, again, I don't know if it's possible, please do not say, well, Sarah has this idea that's going to violate all the laws, you know, for people to get exemptions on fees, say, if they are below a certain income level or such. Because I do think we do need to take care of folks who can't afford to pay a little more in, where we have some citizens. In fact, there was just recently a article in the Greensboro News and Record about the state of work in North Carolina, and you could look up every municipality in North Carolina, and I looked up Jamestown, and Jamestown is 42.5% of households make over $100,000 a year. So we have a population that can contribute, and so I think, you know, if we can tap into those who can contribute and make sure we care for the people who can't. And how that's done, I don't know, but philosophically, that's where I am.
Thank you, sir. Andrew Kinsey, if you could change one thing in the town's zoning code, what would that be and why?
Probably the downtown district, implement a little bit of mixed use zoning for the downtown district to bring in more office space on main level with multi-story, 3 or 4 story buildings downtown with residential above it, possibly a little bit of low income or fixed income housing there to help adjust. That's one thing we struggle with as a town, is having lower income housing options available for the community as a whole. So that's one thing we need to address. Probably try to figure out the zoning issues around Oakdale Mill and try and work with the current ownership there to see if there's development options that for that property as a whole, revitalize it similar to Revolution Mill or Reynolds in Winston-Salem, restore a lot of the mill houses that are on that site, since they are historic properties, as well as implement a park within that vicinity, as there's plenty of space there for park access. I know long-term plans, long-term vision for the town is to have a trail that connects Oakdale Mill all the way to City Lake Park, going along Deep River. So implementing that throughout that process would be a big step towards helping the community as a whole. And that's a perfect location as well for lower income, not necessarily the entire complex, but like Revolution Mill, they have a couple of apartments set aside specifically for fixed income and lower income brackets to be able to afford those apartment homes.
Thank you. For Pam Burgess, given existing budget constraints, how would you stretch taxpayer dollars and still achieve the same or higher levels of service to Jamestown citizens?
That's interesting. So I think that, again, I would collaborate with the finance department. I would talk to the finance department. I think it's important that we would kind of take a look around first and see where we can possibly cut the taxes. We might be able to take some money from here and maybe put it over here and make that happen. But I will tell you honestly, that's not my forte, and I'm going to be honest about it. But I think I would start with the finance department and seeing where we can work to possibly, if it's a possibility. I I would do a little bit more research on that, actually. I would have to, because I'm just not well-versed in that area. But I think that if talking, and again, and collaborating with the correct departments, who does have the knowledge, the knowledge base more than myself, get some education from them and see where we could possibly maybe cut some budgets here, cut some budgets there, and work something out where it would be beneficial to all of us, if possible. But again, I would, that's something that, for me, I'm going to be honest again, just not well-versed in the area, and, but I definitely would talk to the finance department and see where we could do that, if it's something that can be done.
Thank you. The next question is for John Capes. If you received a $1 million grant to use for the town in any way you choose, what would you do with it and why?
Well, first off, I'd have to price out some of the local properties to find out what might be within budget. And one of the things I would like to do is take advantage of trying to improve some parking situation. Now, really, if I'm honest about it, my entire retirement right now is based on a series of scratch-off tickets. So if I'm really matter of fact about it, it's going to take some time to work through having that much money on hand. If I had, you know, that kind of money on hand, there's a piece of property that's currently landlocked that is behind where Wells Fargo used to be. I'd love to buy it from the town, and I would love to put a parking deck there and find some way to get people to it. If I could do it with a reasonable amount of budgeting, then for my next act, I would actually go down to Jamestown Elementary, where two of my children went to school, and I would try to effect some improvements on that school specifically. I think they have had a lot of challenges, and they deserve some updates. And those will be the two things I would focus on, assuming I could stretch that $1 million out that far. It just doesn't go like it used to. So, you know, that really is the first two things that come to mind. But I also want to backtrack on one thing, because here's the thing about the parking piece of it. This is me waving a wand with a whole lot of money. We have roughly 80 parking spaces right behind Town Hall. People talk about parking all the time, and they talk about how they can't get from point A to point B. And realistically, on a regular basis, because I'll walk home, I live, you know, 1/10 of a mile in that direction, and I will walk through the parking lot on any given weekend night, tons of spaces. It's not a long walk, and we can all use the exercise. So would I do it as a benefit to the town? Absolutely. Absolutely. I would happily spend the time, spend the money, and try to make it happen. But there are a lot of things here that are not really looked at as closely as they could be by people who are saying that we have no parking, we have no this, we have no that, when realistically there are options and there are solutions that are out there that are sitting right in front of them. So, not to go off on too much of a rant there, but that's just a thought I wanted to share in relationship to the parking piece. So, there you go.
Thanks, John. For Sarah Glanville, what are the town council members' obligations to their constituents, members of the ETJ, and the community as a whole?
Well, I can't think of like a specific, this is the responsibility, but I mean, that is who we answer to, all of them. I mean, you know, the constituents are the people who vote, but you cannot leave out the people who live in the ETJ. I've worked very closely with the ETJ. They're a very integral part of the planning board. They love Jamestown just as much as the people who live in the incorporated part of Jamestown and vote here. They deserve a voice, and they should be given that voice. So, you know, it's unfortunate that they aren't able to have any representation on the town council. I'm glad they are on the planning board, to at least bring their concerns there. But I think, you know, the town council has been very open to the ETJ. And same with the business owners. Even if they don't live here, they make our community a success. And so we are responsible to them. We have to listen to them, to their needs, to their concerns, to what they think is going well, to what we should do more of, all these kinds of things. And I think if we don't listen to everyone, not just the people who vote for us, then we're missing a huge piece of the puzzle, because we cannot be successful as a town without all the pieces together.
Andrew Kinsey, what, in your opinion, is the biggest need for the town of Jamestown, and how do you propose to fill that need?
Biggest need currently is transparency. I will say transparency has been lacking. If you look at water service and stormwater management, there was a large spill last year at Aberdeen Caboli. I think 16,000 gallons is what they know of leaked. Anything over 1,000 gallons is supposed to be reported to all citizens within the community. That leaked into Bull Run Creek, which runs into Deep River, which runs into our water supply, Ranneman Lake. So why was that not mentioned? It was not on our social media. It was not mentioned within town news. It was not mentioned on Fox 8 or any of the other local news agencies. The only way you could actually find it out was digging and finding that information, which one of our residents actually performed all of that research and has been shut down numerous times when asked about the water quality here. Why is there not actual testing on Bull Run, which actually is going to be affected by the D.R. Horton complex? So have we actually performed an environmental impact study? Where are the results from that environmental impact study? Why is that not being forwarded to the citizens? Why is that not being brought up on the line when a lot of the complaints are the overall impact that D.R. Horton's going to have on Bull Run Creek, on our water supply, on our water service? That information should be readily available and provided to the citizens, and we have a portal for that. We have a town website. We don't even have a search bar on that town website to search for any information. You've got to go to each individual tab. So that goes back to the transparency issue. We should be able to easily find that information on our website with the resources, with the forms, and make the public information request a lot easier. We should have a public comments request or page on that portal that all the comments are made public to the citizens at each meeting as well. So transparency is the one key issue. I know it's been mentioned in the town meeting, and I know there were some council members that voted against the tax increase and tax hike and the vehicle fees. They mentioned that it was due to the cost of living increases within the community. Yet we implemented 2 new positions for the town this past year. We implemented an assistant public service director, and we implemented a grants manager. So the assistant public manager's position, I believe, started out, if I remember correctly, was $76,000. Going back to the transparency issue, there were only 2 applicants for that position. One of those applicants didn't even receive a phone call. I was that other applicant. So transparency is lacking, especially when I left voicemails to the public service director and the town manager and never received an answer. I know citizens have left voicemails and never received an answer, or left messages on the Facebook page and never received a response. That's one thing we as a community need to be better at, is getting back to our citizens and getting back to our applicants. We're a small community. If there's only 2 applicants, we should be able to at least tell the other applicant, hey, you're not considered for that position. We had somebody more qualified.
Thank you.
The next question is for Pam Burgess, and Pam's response will begin our final round.
Ooh.
Serving as a member of the town council requires a significant time commitment, typically 2 to 4 meetings a month, as well as significant reading and preparation prior to meetings. How will this fit with your other commitments?
Very well, I'm semi-retired. I am ready for that commitment. Being semi-retired does give me more time. I am ready for this because I just love our town. I want to be a voice in our town. I'm ready to be a voice in our town, and therefore it would be easy. Not only that, I get to see some great people, spend some time with some great people. But I'm ready for that commitment. Like I said, having the opportunity to do this and not have a job that I'm having to dedicate time to frees my time up. With the existing committees that I sit on currently, I'm already doing it. So I'm ready, and I'm looking forward to it if I have that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. For John Capes. Nationally, forever chemicals such as PFAS and PFOS and 1,4-dioxane have become a hot topic with regards to water quality. How do you plan to address concerns at the local level?
All right, so let's talk about that for a minute. Throughout this entire forum, I've been drinking a glass of water that came from the tap in the back room over here. I am absolutely walking the talk in terms of believing that the water quality in this town is not only good, it is exceptional. We have toured one of the water plants out of High Point. We're going to the other one later this month, if I'm not mistaken. And we're about out of a month, so I'm thinking this week. But, you know, you talk about how, these different chemicals that come up. I'm not a chemist, but I do read. And from what I've seen, there are things on the horizon that may, over time, through testing, through retesting and verification, may turn out to be somehow hazardous to us. That being said, it's not something that we can just arbitrarily try to address everything up front. We have to see how things play out. We have to see what the guidance is given to us on a national level, on a state level, before we can effectively do anything at a local level. It is not something where we can just go and shoot from the hip and do whatever we want. It doesn't work like that. Government doesn't work like that. And I think that if you look at that, which, honestly, you start talking about chemicals. I don't want to talk about my chemistry class in high school, but I'm probably not your guy. But I am very tied into what concerns the public. And when people come to me and say, this scares me, or what about this? And that's when you go and you do your homework and you find out, well, is this relevant, or is this just the latest buzz term that's come out? And are people taking their opportunities to act out, demagogue on it, and try to push it as this is the main thing that's happening right now? So, the council's not being, transparent on this. They're not dealing with this appropriately, when realistically, we're dealing with things as we know that we can, as we're being told to. This is not something that we just get to decide these things, wave a wand, and this is what we're going to do. We don't care what Raleigh's going to do, or the state of North Carolina, or the United States of America. Jamestown's going to do whatever it feels like. Doesn't work like that. So as we get the guidance from the larger level powers that be, that's when we respond and react accordingly. And I can tell you, without a doubt in my mind, that the water has been tested, retested. We have gotten the scores. They are absolutely good. Our water is safe to drink, and I drink it at every meeting. I bring a whole pitcher, and I drink about half of it, and it's not easy when it's a 3-hour meeting, let me just tell you. So I encourage people, look, realistically, this is not something that you can just throw out there, and I'm not saying this at you, I'm saying this in a broader sense, and assume that this is automatically bad and they're not doing anything about it. There is an order of operations in government. It takes time to get to the point that we can actually address these things intelligently. And if we're not careful, we may go after something that in fact wasn't a problem to begin with, and cost the town and the taxpayers a ton of money in the meantime. That is not good business. That is not taking care of the business of Jamestown, and it's not taking care of the people in Jamestown. So, that's all I got.
Thank you, John. For Sarah, the town is approached by a developer who wishes to bring an economic development project to Jamestown. Prior to investing much time and money into the project, the developer wants something. I don't. May I start again? Never know what the developer wanted.
Remains a mystery.
It does, and now I'm curious.
Wanted a t-shirt?
How do you feel about silencing the train whistle for trains which utilize the rail corridor through Jamestown?
I do not have strong opinions about that. Personally, the train was here before we were. The folks who moved into homes near the train knew the train was there and blew its whistle when they moved there. However, if it's not a safety issue, I have no problem with them stopping the whistle. You know, but I think you have to listen to the experts in the field who know that the whistle is blown for a reason. I don't know what that reason is, but if it's required for it to blow, it needs to blow, and if it doesn't, and we can stop it, that's good too.
For Andrew Kinsey, how would you use the comprehensive plan in your decision-making processes for the town?
As far as the comprehensive plan, I would look at those. I would look at the analysis that's been done, the cost-benefit analysis, if any of those studies have been performed. Try and see what provides the most benefit and most impact to the citizens, and try to implement those policies and issues first. One of the issues I see on the topic is upgrading the sound system within the Civic Center here. That's shown as being a need and needs to be done immediately almost. Whereas I look around, I see decent sound system, decent audio devices here as to why are we going to waste our money upgrading the system here when there's other areas and avenues that we could be spending that fund. ARPA funding, for example, we're spending on parks when that could have been used for the stormwater plan and our stormwater issues at hand, instead of raising our water service fees. So I'd like to see that. Going back to the water quality issues, EPA is actually recommending 4 parts per trillion or less for PFAS and PFOA. Both of those from the Piedmont Triad Regional Water Authority well exceed the 4 parts per trillion. I think last year's report was 7.96 for PFOA, 4.5 something for the PFAS. Actual citizen performed water quality tests here, and those were much higher. The other polyfluorochemicals, their EPA is proposing 1 part per trillion instead, 1 part per trillion or below. Yet, if you look at those, our water quality is 3 parts per trillion or greater in a lot of those categories. And one thing I'd like to mention is Roundaman Lake, if you go back and actually research the EPA and the actual funding and everything for the construction of that reservoir, you'll actually notice that even as far back in the 70s and again in the 90s, the EPA was saying that this is not an ideal site due to all the chemical manufacturing plants that feed into it, due to Seaboard Chemicals, which was a disposal company right on the watershed for Roundaman Lake. Their actual leach field is underneath Roundaman Lake. It was never properly cleaned, and that's partly why we have issues with our water quality. They've tried to deal with it at Eastside Chemical. They implemented a ozone purification system. It failed. So they're trying to upgrade it now. Why is it the town's responsibility to pay for that when Piedmont Triad Regional Water Authority circumvented the EPA's recommendations to build that lake? We should be holding them accountable for upgrades at Eastside Water Treatment Plant to get it up to standard.
Thank you, Andrew.
We at 6, or are we?
Yeah.
Have we had 6 questions?
Yeah. Candidates, thank you for your answers, and that concludes our session highlighting the issues that Jamestown citizens are most interested in hearing from you tonight. And we'd like to conclude the forum by offering each candidate an opportunity for closing remarks, beginning with Pam.
Before Pam starts, is this 3 minutes or 5 minutes?
3 to 5.
3 to 5?
I think we have time for 3 to 5, yes.
Gotcha. Just make-
I'd first like to thank our mayor and our current council for all of their dedication and hard work that they do for our town. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for the transparency. Also, I'd like to say, if there are any newcomers to Jamestown, welcome. If you have children, take advantage of JYL, the parks, recreation, the Y. Make sure that you shop local, enjoy the restaurants, and any newcomers, if you golf, make sure you go. We are the best in the triad, like to say that. I'd also like to say, we tend to forget about the people who have helped to shape our town. And with that, I'd like to thank our prior mayors and our prior council members, and also volunteers who have helped shape Jamestown. I thank you for this opportunity. Win or lose, you'll still see me around. Thank you.
All right. So, let me make sure I got my timer right. Okay. So first and foremost, I want to thank everybody who came out tonight. I want to thank everybody who's watching remotely. I want to thank my current peers on the council and our mayor. I think that one thing I'm going to say just about the group, and this isn't self-serving, it's just a fact. Everybody made up their minds to do one thing and one thing alone, and that was to try to make this town as good as it possibly can be and to do their best. Now, we all have different interpretations of best, and we've had some very passionate conversations about that. And we've all walked away friends and agreed to disagree. I think it's important for all of us to understand the difference between disagreeing about facts and disagreeing about arbitrary minutia that is thrown out to be consumed because people just assume that because somebody spits out a number, it must be true. I've thrown out some letters. Here's some letters, A, B, C, D, E, F. It doesn't mean anything, okay? It's just the alphabet. But here's a number that you can count on, 336-454-1138. That's the town hall. Ask to speak to the town manager, the assistant town manager, or somebody else there that will give you a good answer. And it'll be an honest answer because they all live and breathe Jamestown. I feel very strongly about that. I've gone out on a limb a time or two and pretty much had the limb snap because I didn't like what was being said to people on the town, local town employees. That being said, I feel very strongly about this town in general. Ask yourself this question. If someone is doing nothing but stirring up negativity, trying to find fault, and trying to point at why things are wrong, is that really the person that you want to have serving you? Is that the type of person that you need actually having your back? Do they have anybody's back, or are they self-serving because maybe of a lack of a phone call or a missed opportunity? I want you to consider the possibility that whether or not you vote for me, it's up to you. I've served this town for 11 years, and I promise you, regardless if I'm on this side or if I'm on that side, I'm going to stay involved. I love this town. I might sweep the streets. I don't care. I love Jamestown. It matters that much to me. And I will tell you that the people that are sitting next to me, Sarah and Pam, I've both worked with. They're great people. You don't like me? Great. Vote for them. They're good people. They'll serve the town well. But I'll tell you this, and it's the one thing at the end of the day, I try not to bust out of my skin because I feel so strongly about it. The people that want to put out nothing but negativity about this town, that want to put a word salad out there about Jamestown, have nothing positive to say about Jamestown, but then they want to tell you how they can make it all better, well, that's a load of bunk, okay? And bunk is a nice word for me. The people that work closely with me know that. But I'm sorry. We are here, we've been here for a long time, and we'll be here for a long time, and our children will be here for a long time. This is a wonderful town. It has wonderful people. And I believe in each and every one of them. I try to listen to each and every one of them, and I don't always agree with each and every one of them, but you do your best. We all do our best because it matters. All of it matters. And if you are not doing your own homework, if you're not looking at the information yourself, if somebody's putting a number out there, or a word out there, or some letters out there, and saying, this must be it, I got some news for you. You need to do your own homework. Don't take my word for it. I've got 3 other peers on the council. They're all smart. They can answer questions. I've got a mayor that can run rings around me. There are plenty of people out there that can answer questions. All you have to do is pick up a phone. If anybody picks up a phone. Okay, cell phone. You know what I mean. Sorry, I'm dating myself. But make the effort and do your homework. Find out for yourself, is something true or not? Either I'm going to die next Tuesday, or I've been drinking fresh tap water for the last 8 months during council meetings, okay? Believe it. Do your homework. Ask the questions. And thank you very much. It's been a privilege to serve this town and these people and to live here. Thank you.
I too want to thank everyone for having us tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity to answer some very thoughtful questions. I really was hoping I'd get a "where's your favorite place to hang out" kind of question.
That was a softball.
But no, I appreciate the opportunity to really think through some of these issues that are important to people. I thank everyone for coming out tonight and being engaged and part of this process, the electoral process. I am a firm believer in civic duty. I believe that our most basic civic duty is to vote, and so I really appreciate everyone coming out and supporting the electoral process. And for anyone watching at home on YouTube, I appreciate you as well. I just want to say that one of the reasons I wanted to run for town council is I want to lead with positivity. And I don't say that because I want to be a Pollyanna, and maybe some of my responses here seemed overly Pollyanna-ish. I can speak at length about issues I see with the town, but I believe that one of the reasons that I have lived in Jamestown longer than I've lived anywhere else except for the town where I was born and raised is because it's a great place to live. And I think the reason we see homeowners who are first generation in their homes still, or descendants of the first generation in the home, is because they know it's a great place to live, which means a lot of stuff is being done very, very well. It's making life great for us. Our services are beyond compare. The snow removal, when I get a call from my friends over in Ab's Farm of, I still can't get out of my driveway, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. They were here within an hour. So, I mean, the services are beyond compare. So, a lot of stuff is great about the way our town functions. Can there be changes? Yes, and I'd like to be part of those changes and experience those in a different role from the planning board. I've certainly been part of it in the planning board. But I think my planning board colleagues, I hope they would say that I've led them effectively and with positivity, that I listen to issues thoughtfully, I consider multiple sides, I do my research, and I'm not afraid to ask hard questions. I'm not just a yes man. I really am not afraid to ask, what are we doing differently? What can we do differently? I spoke about it in the paper article that I engaged the school systems when we were talking about the D.R. Horton project. I really believe we need to look at infrastructure on a larger scale than we do in Jamestown. Schools are a part of our infrastructure. They're already over capacity. And further development is going to exacerbate that. So there are things we can do better. But like I said, I love living here. I love the people here. I think so much is good. And so we need to continue doing those things that are good and focus respectfully on the things that maybe can be changed and do those in a respectful and thoughtful process.
That doesn't mean your time's up, you can still talk.
I didn't know what that was, but that's fine. My time should be up. So Pam and I could probably talk for hours if we were allowed. So.
Andrew?
Thank you so much. I have to agree with Sarah. There are going to be issues at hand. Council members should not agree on every single topic. There's 5 of us, including the mayor. Every single person on the council is not going to agree on every single issue. To say, do your homework, I have done my homework. That study is actually from the Piedmont Triad Regional Water Authority. And you can also find it on EPA's website, How's My Water? All that information is actually very public via the EPA and via other avenues. It's actually mandated that we have a water quality report each year. So to say, do my homework, I actually have. To say, how about we do a health analysis to see if there's actually increased cancer within the community due to our water quality? How about we actually do performance analysis of each topic at hand and try and actually gain an understanding of why we're doing what we're doing? Instead of just saying, do your homework. I have. Those are not just numbers. That actually came from Piedmont Triad Regional Water Authority's annual report as of 2022. So to say do your homework, to shut down actual factual information, that is what I did. You can actually research it yourselves, and you will find the same information. You will find the same emails and messages and everything from the EPA that said Randleman Lake should not be built here. There are too many contaminants. There's too many manufacturing plants going into this reservoir. It needs to be. And you'll find the same thing for Seaboard Chemical. They declared bankruptcy so they didn't have to clean up the site. It's never been cleaned up. So the chemicals are still in the ground. And guess what? High Point City now uses that as their chemical storage facility for a lot of their chemicals throughout the actual city services. So it's still right there on the edge of our water. So yes, that is a very big issue to our citizens. Health is a very big issue to our citizens. We should actually be looking at maintaining that quality of life and trying to ensure that our citizens are protected instead of shutting them down when they provide factual information. That's what you've done. You've shut them down when they have provided factual information.
Just watch yourself.
You clank your water glass every time.
Excuse me?
You clank your water glass whenever they're talking at
I'm sorry, what are you
council
talking
meetings.
about?
Okay.
A lot of citizens know that.
Let's
And
keep
that's
it-
where I'm going to
let's keep
say,
it-
You should be talking to the group,
Yes.
just saying.
Well, candidates, thank you for your participation this evening. Audience, we thank you for your presence, both in person and online. Again, a special thanks to the Jamestown Business Association and the town staff, the town of Jamestown. I want to remind you that we are currently in the midst of early voting opportunities for our election, with the primary scheduled for October the 10th and our general election set for November the 7th. So please participate. Please exercise your right to vote. And with that, we conclude our forum for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Les.
Thank you, Les. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you so much.
Remember what it was like to be a kid? To explore and play. To roam free all day. In Jamestown, North Carolina, we get out of the grind and escape into the moment. People feel good here. Let loose here. eat well here. Feels swell here. We go for a ride or an afternoon stroll. We cheer each other on. And go for the goal. Here, a treasured history meets the energy of a town on the rise. In a place with true heart and soul, and where we have our own special beat. Jamestown, North Carolina, where history and possibility meet.